All right, welcome everyone. This is our Thursday morning production call. Today's topic is going to be painting the picture for your client so you can get more yeses and walking them through the experience. I'm excited about this one because, again, we keep our topics very live. We get to talk to all our agents where they're struggling, what they need help on. We reflect on a lot of our own business, on how we can improve our own business. And one of the things we wanted to help is getting more yeses. A lot of agents have increased their standing lead orders and they have a whole bunch in place now, which is super cool. That means we are sitting with more families as a organization, and we want to help get more yeses. Also, as you get more yeses, that also increases the chances of somebody calling you and saying, hey, I don't want the policy. And this helps prevent that as well, because this really helps them. Today's topic is painting the picture. And what it does mainly is teaches them, right, how they would use this, right? And this again, right, you've heard me talk about the topic, right? Are they going to remember you on the 15th, right? When that puppy drafts, right? Because it's not like it's something on their mantle or on their wall, like a TV that they buy, right? This is a piece of paper or an email that they tuck away and never see again, but they see the premium come out every single month, right? So this is just a great way of, again, how do you embed in their head, right? Like on the 15th, do they remember you? Do they remember, right, the picture you painted in their head of how they're going to use this to make sure their family's protected? So that's what we're going to go over. Before we get into it, I love to talk about we are a big community that works together. What I humbly ask is everyone takes lots of notes. This literally, if you use it to your advantage, James said it best, is if you just make sure you come onto this call and get 1 or 2 nuggets and go apply it to your business, it will help you help more families, right? And what does that do for you? It helps you make more money. So please take notes. Any of those little nuggets that you apply in your business and it helps you help a family, what we humbly ask is you post it on Band. And what helped you, because it does help other agents. Hey, you know what? It helped me, and they get to see that, and then they get to go apply it. So we're a big community that works together to help more families. So that's what we humbly ask, and we'll get started. James, that we talked about painting the picture, and what this always reminds me of is if you don't know, right, I come from the restaurant business. And something that they embedded into our head where I used to work was making this an experience, right? Like whatever you're selling, right, or whatever you're helping somebody with, if you're providing a service, are you providing a really great experience? And what painting the picture does is you're walking them through the experience of how they're going to use this, right? So this is more on the tail end, but in the appointment, right, are you walking them through the experience of how you're going to help them and doing a really good job of explaining, right, how this helps the family right there or in the appointment, right? Like, are you doing a great job explaining, like, hey, the day something does happen, this is how it works. Right. And y'all sit with a whole bunch of families. Think about this. How many times have y'all talked to a family and they're like, and you're going through the FIF and you ask the question, hey, do you have coverage? And they're like, yeah. And, well, what do you have? I don't know. I have, a couple hundred. I don't know. Right. Like they couldn't tell you if it's an accidental. They couldn't tell you if it's a whole life. They couldn't tell you if it's right. Like anything about the coverage. Think about that. Right. And
the carrier.
yeah, right. They like not even the carrier. They couldn't even tell you, right, how much the premium is. And I want y'all to think about that, because when you're done with your appointment, does the client have that same experience with you? Right? Because you were just really quick to pull the trigger. They said yes. And you were like, oh crap, they said yes, hurry up, fill it out and get out of the appointment. Right? Because you're scared that you're going to get a no, or they're going to, right, at some point stop you to get that, to getting that yes, right? And I really want that to sink into y'all, because, I didn't find success in the insurance industry until I made sure I was truly helping that family, right? Like I would say I was a really good salesman, right? I've sold cars and in the restaurant industry, right? They push sales and basically just getting yeses by large numbers. And that's not what this is, right? This is an emotional sell. And the way you draw their emotion is painting the picture of what happens. And I want that to sink in, right? Because that's the most important thing. We are helping a family. And when you truly find the value of being able to help that family with these products, you'll be amazed of how many more yeses you get, how much more your premium goes up, how many more apps you can get in a home, and how much more income you can make for your family. That is like the greatest combination, and all you're doing is just helping the family in the best way possible, right? Um, Also, what I want y'all to think about in that part is, and James, you can probably speak to this because you're really good at this when I hear you when I hear you running your appointment, right? Is allowing yourself to pivot in the appointment to paint them the best picture, right? Because we you know, let's stay on the painting stuff, right? James, we prep for an appointment, we draw up a sketch, right? Let's say that. But when you're in the appointment, you may have to, right, erase the whole thing and get a whole new canvas, right? And anything you can speak to that, James, on being able to pivot and creating a whole new picture for them, right?
Yeah, you just gotta walk them through it basically step for step, just if anything happens to them. Because as you're going through an appointment, you may find out, hey, you know what, they don't even qualify for something, or their budget's only XYZ, or maybe you need an increase and they want the full coverage, whatever that case may be. Or even if they get declined, and you know what, all you could offer is a critical period, some more equity protection. So when you got to paint that picture, you'd be like, it's not what it does, it's how you do it. So, first we always teach everybody, hey, don't show, hey, this is 10,000 worth of coverage. You know what I mean? So, hey, this is going to give Mary 6 months of payments. So she has enough time to decide the next steps for her, in the next in her life, you know what I mean? Whether it's, hey, we're going to refinance. And then if they don't have anything set, you sometimes, got to paint the picture, give them options too. We got to come up with, you'll best say it, Joe. You always say, hey, we're problem solvers. So we identified the problem. Hey, this is, they don't have anything in place. So what is she going to do? They can't afford anything. They can't afford the full mortgage. So we're going to paint the picture and walk them through steps, what this 10,000 can do. Hey, it's not $10,000. This is 6 months worth of payments for her. So they're going to be able to, Mary's going to have time, either she has enough time to, move into, sell the house, get the full equity, move into something smaller. So you start painting those pictures, refinance, cut that bill in half to something affordable. Family going to move in, or she going to move closer to family, whatever, maybe he has a big pension that usually takes, all that process takes a couple of months as well, maybe more, especially if you're dealing with wills and people trying to fight over stuff like that. That could take a couple months, if not more, depending on what happens. And you want to paint that picture and just have it on there and just step for step. And then, hey, you know what? I'm here available too. So make sure you have my contact number, my personal cell, and I can help that process, because that's the last thing we're worried about, when somebody passes away. You know what I mean? We want to start that process as quickly as possible, get that going. That way it's seamless for you. And then that's just going to create, that's how you get referrals as well. Just be like being open and honest with them as well.
And just listening, I hope everyone's listening to what he's saying, right? Anything that he just talked about had nothing to do with product. And I want y'all to think about that, because a lot of y'all are brand new, and we're getting all these phone calls, right? Of, hey, so where do I go learn about TLE? Where do I go learn about the Americo products? Like, how do I go study this insurance company? Listen to what we're training you on. None of that, right? It has nothing to do, right? Like, you could never help a family saying, hey, you know what, David, if something happens to you, right? Term Life Express is going to have a blank rider, and it's going to have this terminal illness and blah, blah, right? Like, the product has nothing to do with the solution. Remember, there's only two types of insurances, a whole life and a term. And when Chris Cook told me this, I fell in love with the process, because everyone goes, well, I got to go learn this product, and how does it work? Do y'all know how it works? Does anyone know how insurance works? David.
If you die, it pays.
You die, it pays.
If you
Boom.
die, it pays. I love it. Right? This is, and I hope y'all hearing this, right? Like Paul Jones is crushing it right now with production. David is one of our elite producers in the industry, right? And it's because it's very simple. Insurance, if you pass away, it pays. You do not need to go learn anything about. In fact, if you work directly with me, my agents laugh, right? Because they call me and be like, hey, how does this or what are the rules? I'm like, I have no idea. Good luck. Call Mutual of Omaha because I don't know the age. I don't know none of that stuff. All I know is we're either signing you up for a term or a whole life. And guess what? When this person passes away, this person gets the benefit. When
Yeah, I
you
just
keep
wanna,
it that simple, like that, you can't do anything but help a family, right?
and just piggyback off that, just, keeping it simple on that part is you start learning all this stuff too, and then you'll talk yourself out of the appointment because you know all this. You want to let somebody know basically, hey, I know all this about this
I
product.
got all this
Hey, it's
knowledge
gonna
in my
do
head.
this. Hey, it covers this, it covers this, it covers that. This one doesn't cover this, and then you want to compare these two. Next thing you know, it was like the client's gonna be like, oh, whoa, 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 whoa.
I gotta
Let me
think
think
about
about it.
this,
Let me do
James.
my own research. I didn't know there was so many products, so different stuff, and then there it
Talk
goes.
yourself out of a sale.
Yeah, the best thing to do is, just keep it simple. Just like you want to help your friend the best way as possible, and let them know you're there for them. When that time comes, you're able to help them. I mean, that's that trust. I mean, people only buy. For three things that are going to stop you from getting the no. First one, do they trust you? You already got that trust if they show up. The other two is either it's out of the price range, the budget, maybe you showed them something too much, and then the other one, they're confused. They just don't know what you're telling them because you may have overthought it. You're talking about, hey, this is the IUL, this is a term policy, this is that. Keep it simple. I would show two things, accidental, and they go together. I mean, this does this, and either do you do the full mortgage? If not, hey, we're gonna do an accidental and partial or half. That's it. Keep it simple. You pick what's in your budget. We need to adjust something lower or higher. We're gonna adjust to something that fits your budget. But that's about it. You start overcomplicating things, going down these rabbit holes. And that's why I kind of coincide just my huddle in the calls, just because we want to do everything what's best for them, and really we're just making it worse for them and for us. And then you want to build that relationship and that friend. That way you want those referrals, you want them to count on you. We don't want to confuse them, and a lot of people want to know all these products, and then you start saying all these words or lingo, insurance lingo, and people don't want to hear that. I mean, they don't want to be little and be like, I'm just confused, I don't even know what you're talking about.
But they're counting on us to be the professional
Exactly.
and get the right products for them when we meet with them, right? So if we're having to explain them, it kind of takes away from what we're doing.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jeff. I heard, be careful as an insurance agent. Are you trying to edify your education on insurance, right? Like how much do you know? Because that's what you're doing when you're explaining product, right? You're edifying yourself and your knowledge, right? Like I know everything about this policy I'm about to present to you, Rodney, and it's this, it does this, it does this, right? All you do is confuse them, right? Our job is to show them, right? And I want y'all to think about this. Mortgage protection, because that's normally what we're all handling, right? Is a concept. I hope everyone understands that, right? Mortgage protection is a concept. It's not a policy, right? TLE, Term 100, Living Promise, those are not mortgage protection policies, right? Only two types of policies, whole life and term. That's it. Doesn't matter who is a carrier, what product it is, right? We sell a concept, right? It's in our script, right? For me, the most important part of the script is when I get to tell them, hey, let me tell you a little bit about mortgage protection. Mortgage protection is simply kind of like a life insurance policy or a life insurance policy that's simply designed to either pay off your mortgage, right? If I know I'm going to be able to do that for the client, right? Because they're young and healthy, or if I know I'm going critical period, it's simply a life insurance policy that's designed to make sure, right, if something happens to you, James, we're gonna provide some time and protection for Mary. That's what mortgage protection is. It's still a life insurance policy that we've designed to protect you for a certain amount of time. It is a concept. And when y'all truly start to grasp that idea, guess what? You become really good at selling the concept, right? Yesterday on the policy, was it yesterday? I think yesterday or the day before yesterday, and the last client I helped, right? I helped them with it's 6 months worth of mortgage protection. It was a $15,600 policy, right? But I think she only asked me once how much it was, because it was all about, hey, she had 3 kids. She had a $398,000 house. When she lost her husband, they didn't have anything. And she just wants to make sure. So the house is valued almost 600,000. They have almost like 250,000, probably 300,000 or more the day she were to pass, because she was still pretty young. And so there's a lot to protect there. And so the concept that I helped her with, right, was very simple. Like, hey, this is just going to buy them enough time to be able to put the house up for sale. And she goes, that's all I want, Joe. I just want to make sure they don't lose that 300. She goes, because one of the questions I asked, right, was because I'm helping her, I'm painting this picture for her. I'm like, hey, you know, so you pass away, right? Like, what's happening to the house? Are the kids nearby? She goes, nope, one's in Georgia, one lives here in the Phoenix area, and then the other one lives in Colorado. I go, well, any of them, the one there, is he going to live in the house? She goes, no, they all have their own family. She goes, they would never live in this house, but I want to make sure I don't lose all the equity I built. I'm like, perfect. This is how we help families in your situation. Because when they pass away, this pays out to whoever you want. We can set it to one child, right? And I'm painting the picture of what's going to happen. Do you want it to go to all 3? Do you want it to go to one child? Or do you have a will or a trust that we can put it in with instructions of how they protect this house? Right? And then she's like, hey, you know what? I've been thinking about a will. Right? I'm like, hey, look, either way, whatever you want to do, a will or a trust, I highly recommend a trust. You do got to go pay a lawyer to go get that stuff. Right? I go, but you leave instructions of how to protect your $300,000 in equity. And that's how you make sure exactly what you want to happen. She's like, great, but I don't have that right now, Joe. I'm like, that's perfect. Let me paint you the picture of how we help a family in your situation. Today, we're going to assign it either one child that you want, or we can put it all 3. And the day you do fix that, she goes, because I am, Joe, I want to go work on this. I'm like, perfect. The day you do, you call me back and we change the beneficiary. But until then, we want the protection in place as of today. She's like, yes, I do. Perfect. So let's go ahead and do it like this today. Right. And James, yeah, dude, I love it when I hear you talking to the family, right? Because you're really good at explaining to them what happens afterwards. Right? Because that's the most important thing, right? Like, how does this help them? Let me tell you, if next month, right, on the 20th, when it drafts out of her bank account, she's going to be like, oh, I remember, right? In fact, you know what? I probably haven't even worked on my will or my trust. And Joe told me I had to, right? I got to go do this stuff. Like, they remember us, right? When that payment is drafted, they remember us. They don't think it's like, oh man, what did I do? I don't even remember, right? No. They remember the conversations we've had, right? Because we're really good at having them repeat it back to us too, right? Because it's like, hey, Mary, so do you think that's going to help you best? She goes, yeah, because you know, John and them are over here, and she's telling me what she's going to do now, right, in the next couple of months to make sure she has it set exactly how she wants, right? And then even the picture of afterwards, she goes, yeah, my concern is if I'm gone, this is what would happen. Like, she's already having ideas, and this is why she wants to make sure this protection is in place, right? But we stimulated those ideas, and she's now, not only did I paint a really good picture, but she's describing the picture, right? Like, think about that, right? Like, we talked about it, I think like 2 or 3 weeks ago, right? Where are they repeating back, right, what you are putting in place? Because that affirmates, right? That makes sure that, hey, they know exactly what we're doing here. Xander, you had your hand up, buddy.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna ask, like at the beginning of the appointment when you're talking about, hey, you know, this is the protection that'll either pay off the home or make mortgage payments on it. I've experimented with, like, if someone's older and unhealthy, and I know there's no way we're going to cover the whole home, just saying it up front. And I've gotten stopped before. They're like, hey, if this isn't going to pay off the whole home, I don't want to keep going with this. And so I've gone back to saying both. And then, I mean, we end up explaining critical period, and they'll come back around to like, oh, well, that would be all that we actually need. But I was curious how your luck has been when you say at the beginning, like, hey, you're young and healthy, we're gonna get this whole thing paid for, or maybe you got some medical issues, we're gonna look at just maybe.
Yeah, I wouldn't limit yourself at the beginning. I just remember because we are always combining accidental with equity protection. If you're combining the same thing, I'm almost always showing the full mortgage payoff, right? Because when you combine the two, and if you do it right, you can only do it with 70s or below, right?
Yeah.
When you have that option, right, I always at the very end get to say, hey, this is how we do exactly what you wanted, which is paying off the entire mortgage, right? If it's an accident, done just like you wanted. If not, no matter what, right, Mary's protected for 12, 24 months, whatever it may be, right? And I wouldn't, if everyone's a little bit different, I'm good at just explaining, right, that I have their trust. I'm really good with rapport. If you feel that that's not working for you, don't do it, right? Make sure you're always pitching the whole thing, right? Because what you really get them to open their eyes is in that FIF, because that's where it gives you the power to say, hey, so, right, Mary's John's gone, Mary, like, what does that look like for you?
Add something? Oh,
yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean.
No, rock
I
and
was just
roll.
going to say, a lot of times when you're talking older people, you're going to say the script, right? Either pay off your mortgage or help with the monthly mortgage payments. A lot of times they'll go, hey, I just want to pay off the whole thing. I'm like, okay, perfect. And just keep going on. Don't explain. You can't explain it on a phone call to book the appointment. The whole idea of the appointment is to go through the process so they understand when you get to critical period, they go, oh, that makes sense, right? But if you do it on when you're booking the appointment, you've put a wall up. Now they're thinking, well, I don't want to do this because I can't pay off the whole mortgage, but they haven't been through the process, right? So make sure, just say, hey, no problem. You just continue on, acknowledge what they said, and go right back to the script.
And even at the beginning of appointment, right? If you're getting that to the beginning standard, like, just keep going, right? When they see their situation, right, we're painting the picture. There is no, right, like I love telling an agent, right, like, you should be blown away when you get a no, right? Like, you're like we just went over your budget. Like, Mary is not in a good spot if you pass away. Like, what is she gonna do, right? Like, if you feel that, man, you've done an amazing job, right? But you got to be able to run the full appointment. So like Jeff said, right, just make sure you don't limit yourself with saying that.
Yeah, just acknowledge it and move on. I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, hey, great, awesome. And then when you're really knowing where to pivot for them, and they don't qualify for it, you let them talk themselves out of wanting the full mortgage payout. So that's what I do. So I'm like, hey, the full mortgage, if that's in your cards, great. I mean, and then when I'm explaining the critical period, I say, hey, what I see more families do in your situation is critical period. And I'll explain, like, hey, if we were to do the full mortgage or even get close to it, just say, we did 100,000, we're looking at, $700 payment or, $1,000 payment just to get to 100,000, because I don't think you want another mortgage payment, do you?
Right.
Oh, no, I don't want that. Okay, perfect. So this is what families do in your situation. We do critical period, and then I explain it. So they talk themselves out of it.
Okay, I like that. Thank you, James.
Yep.
And so I want to go over kind of setting up how you paint a really good picture. So I'm going to give you all a couple questions that I want y'all to write down, or information that you should be drawing, right, in your appointment to be able to paint a really good picture for them. So, right, again, every case is a little bit different, and well, not a little bit, every home is different, right? And the reason we're really good at helping a lot of families is we are listening, right? So you have to be very good at pivoting. Most of the time, if you're doing a really good case working with your upline, you should probably, right, about 80% you're going to have the ideal option for them anyways, right? But sometimes you'll have to pivot. But these are 4 things, and James, please add to this, or anyone, Jeff, right? That y'all think bring value to how do I prepare my painting, right? Like I got my canvas, what's the sketch that I want to start putting up for them, right? So that when I'm going through painting the picture of how this is going to work for them, this is ideal for them, right? So in between your rapport building, your appointment, your FI and right, running the script and then getting to the FIF, there's some certain information that you should be drawing out no matter what. The really important one is who lives with the client that you're talking to, right? Like are they right? If they're not married, are they living with one of their kids, right? One of their grandkids, like who's in the home with them? That's very important because that's usually going to help you say, hey, we want to protect that person that's in the home, right? Because we don't want them to lose a home. So are you getting the information of who's in the home with them? Wherever you want to get it from, right? I'm really good at getting it at the very, very beginning, right? When I'm building my rapport, hey, this is a new home for you, right? Like, you know, who lives there with you? When did y'all move in? Is this a refinance? Is this, right, a home that's been with the family for a long time and y'all got a line of credit out of it? Right? Like I ask a lot of very invasive questions because I want to know who's in their house because I want to know why we're protecting this, right? And then the next one is, where does the beneficiary live, right? Who's your beneficiary? Who would you ideally want to be your beneficiary? Where do they live, right? Are they someone that lives in the home? Do they live in another state? Do they live nearby? Do they own their own home? Right? Because sometimes it's like, oh, my son John would be the beneficiary. Does he live there with you, Mary? No, he doesn't. I live here by myself. Great. Where does he live? Oh, he lives right on the other side of town. Oh, sweet. Is he married? Grandkids? Anything? Oh, yeah, he's got 2 kids. Well, you know, they own their own home too? No, he actually rents. Okay, so, you know, Mary, I love to ask this, right? If something happens to you, do you think he would stay with the house? Yeah, he would. I would love for him to be able to move in with the kids. Man, I'm loading that shotgun, right? Like I'm getting so much ammunition to be able to help this family in so many different ways because I'm very invasive in the questions that I'm asking, right? Because I want to know, because that way I can paint her the picture later on, right? So, okay, so who's the beneficiary? Where do they live? That should be the second one, right? The first one was who lives in the home with them, right? What's that relationship, right? Whether grandkids, kids, boyfriend, right? Whatever it may be. Who lives in the home with them? The next one was, where does the beneficiary live? The next one is, what does the beneficiary want to do? Right? Because if you have a husband and wife and they live in a home, but I've also gathered the information that all the kids live up in, right, Wisconsin and Michigan and all this other stuff, but they moved down here because he had respiratory problems and he loves Arizona because the air is way better for him. Mary, John passes away. What do you want to do? Well, I'm not going to stay here, Joe. I'm going to move back to Wisconsin because that's where all my family and kids are. Ding. That's instant critical period, right? Like I need a very small policy to protect this family, right? I'm asking all these questions. So what does the beneficiary want this product to do? Right? And then the final one is the person that I'm talking to, right? Or the family, right? Sometimes it's husband and wife for both of them, right? Or if it's just that single person, what would you like this coverage to do for you? Y'all think about that, right? What would you like this coverage to do for you? Because at the end of the day, that is probably the #1 question you should ask, because that's what you need to pivot to if that's not what you got prepared. Right? Because if they insist on having the house paid off, well, guess what? That's where the whales come out, right? That's where you get those $500, $600, $700 policies because they're insisting on, Joe, can you get me the most amount of, right? Doesn't mean we're going to pay off their home, right? Because they could be 70 and it's a $500,000 home, but they're like, hey, Joe, I'd love this to pay off the home. I don't know if I can do that for you, David, but I'm going to get really close. I'm going to show you as much coverage as I can get you. That's my whale, right? I'm going to go get him combined policies. I don't know. I'm going to have a $400 or $500 monthly premium because I'm giving them the person what they want, right? Or they're just like, hey, you know what? I'm on a budget. I just want to have something in place, Joe, that's going to make sure, right, Mary doesn't lose a home. I got you. right? That's my $40 policy that I'm going to make sure, right? I'm inside of your budget. You're super comfortable, but Mary is not going to lose the home the day something happens to you, John. Right? I'm listening to what they want. That's probably the most important question, right? What do you want this coverage to do for you? Right? If it's a husband and wife, what do you want this coverage to do for y'all? Right? And then you got to ask them both, because here's the thing. No, which one of y'all, and David, I'll pick on you because y'all are married, right? Like, have y'all, before this, did y'all ever have a conversation of what would happen if we were to pass away? I never did.
Not to the depth that we should have.
Right? Like, these are conversations no one has, and we get paid the big bucks to ask very uncomfortable questions. And guess what? Talk about people passing away. So if you're never having those conversations in your appointments, you're hurting yourself, right? Like, we got to talk. Now, I'm really big at be careful, right? Don't say, hey, if you die and you die and you die, right? There's so many prettier ways to say it, right? Like, hey, if John's not here tomorrow, right? If he passes, right? If he gets in an accident, right? Whatever you're talking about, right? There's nicer ways to say it. Be careful how you say it, right? You want to keep them in a positive mindset. But all right, I'm really great at asking them, right? Like, you know, John's not here. What are we going to do? What would you do, Mary? John, what would you like to happen? Right? It's in the script. It literally is in the script to say, hey, John, you're gone. What does that look like for y'all? And they're like, I don't know. Don't take that little blanket answer, right? What do we mean we don't know, right? Like, we did go over your budget. It looks like we have 10,000 in the bank account. How long do you think Mary could live off of that? And he's like, well, it's probably not going to be that much. I'm like, right? So it looks like 3,500 is going out a month. So it looks like about 3 months. Yeah, probably not even that, Joe, because what's she going to do? I mean, I don't even have a policy for my burial, so she's going to have to use some of that, right? Like, I get him stimulated, right? Like, tell me more. Oh, yeah, so probably about 2 months. Mary, how do you feel about that? She goes, I don't like that at all, Joe. Like, I don't like that either, Mary. Right? Like, that's what I get to help with. Sounds like we should put something in place today. What do y'all think? And they're like, yeah, that's why we're here with you. Right? And I'm like, sweet. Okay. So those are the 4 questions, right? I'm going to repeat. I'm going to go over, right? And it doesn't matter how you ask them. Are you extracting this information, right? Who lives in the home with them? Where does the beneficiary live? What does the beneficiary want with this product, right? And then the most important one, what do you want this to do for you? When you get those 4 things, guess what? It's a layup, right? Doesn't mean you always get a yes, but you know exactly what to present to them. That is exactly what would help them perfectly for their family. That's how you get off an appointment and be like, they're crazy. They said no to $65, right? Like, I just got off an appointment last night. I was laughing, right? Because I was able to save him $35 a month on the same protection, had more coverage, right? And it was doing so much more for him. And he's like, nah, I think I'm going to stay with this. I'm like, okay. Like, I can laugh off of that appointment because I did my best and I gave him exactly what he wanted. In fact, I even beat what they had in place. Right? You don't always get a yes. I'm not saying this is going to get you all these yeses. I'm just saying you did the best to your ability of having the perfect option for them in their situation. Right? So now we got this information. And James, you want to hit on, again, you're really good at explaining the pivot to them. Right? So we've gotten who lives in the house with them, where does the beneficiary live? We know what the beneficiary would like, or we have an idea of what, right, the person who's looking at this product, right? Like, I know what they want to do with this, right? Like, how do you start, right, pitching of this is where we're headed now with this, right? Because now, and where you should be at this point in the script is you finish the FIF, right? You've explained what mortgage protection is, and we're about to show options. That's where you should be at the script with this information, because you should have gotten it from setting the appointment, from building rapport, right? From explaining what we're about to do, right? Your role and purpose, and then going through the FIF reset. Through those 4 things, we should be up to here now, and you should have extracted this information already, so that you have, if you have to pivot, right, this is where you get to say, hey, hold on, right, and listen to this, because this is the beauty that they know you're hearing them. Hey, you know what, James, give me a little bit. I had some options, but after asking you all these questions, I think I have I know exactly how to help your family in this situation, because this is usually what I hear from other families. So let me make sure I have that perfect plan for you. Right. And if it takes me a couple minutes or two, right, like I get to pause the appointment there. David.
Just want to add a little nugget. So kind of a trick of the trade that I find a lot of value in is when I reach this point where I'm going to put some options together, I'll tell the couple, you know, Joe and James, you guys are a couple here. Joe and James, give me a quick second. I'm going to look into some programs for you. I'll be right back with you in a minute. And I will turn off my camera and I'll hit mute on my Zoom, but I'm still listening to everything they're saying because they're chatting away. And you're going to pick up all kinds of nuggets. Though they might say, no matter what he says, we're doing it. Or as long as it's under $150, we're all in.
Oh, that's good.
There's some gold there.
I love that. Thank you for that one. I just got a nugget, James.
That's real good.
Love it. So tell me, James, right? We've gotten this information. How do you, what are you starting to tell them now, right? On the options of where we're headed or painting, right? Because this is where, right now we've got a really good picture. We got all the right information. Now we have to start embedding the seeds, right? Of planting the vision for them. So that, and here's really key. If y'all haven't, I think most of us have been here for a while, but some of us are new, right? If y'all remember, never split the difference, right? It's all about planting seeds, right? Because if you get really good at making this their idea, it's a layup, right? Because guess what? They're going to do what they want to do, right? So if we're really good at making this their idea, you're going to get so many more yeses, right? Because it's almost like you're stopping them and they're like, no, Joe, I want this coverage. Let's just go ahead and do it right now. Are you sure? Right? Like we flip it so fast for them. It is the greatest thing, but we do it right through a lot of this training. So, right, how do you start making this their idea? We've gotten this information, and James, you're starting to pitch the idea, right? So, where are you at this point?
I mean, at this point, we're kind of going over the different types of options before I even show anything. All right. So I'm kind of going, hey, we got the full mortgage payout. This is, based on what you told me, this is going to cover everything you want. I mean, you start using little phrases. Hey, you mentioned you wanted the full mortgage payout. This is the full mortgage payout. So, then you start showing the option. Hey, this is, 500,000. It's going to be, 100 and some dollars. Next option, if you want to do partial, you show them option 2. I've already gotten over that. So I use the slides. If any of y'all use the slides, I just feel, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Visual, people want to see it. 90% of people actually pick up more visual and pick it up faster and understand it versus just you talking. I mean, unless they're writing it down and paying attention and you're repeating yourself, it's going to be a lot harder to explain versus them seeing the picture. So first, before I even show options, I'm going over the different types of options. So option 1, full mortgage payout. Option 2, hey, we're going to do partial, half or partial of the mortgage. You know what I mean? So whether they qualify for or not, I'm going over it regardless, just so they understand. And he even has it on there. Hey, usually harder to qualify on option 1, the full mortgage, just because it goes based off age and health. And a lot of people have already looked into life insurance, looked at other options. So they already kind of get an idea for the most part, some of them. So they know it's a little bit pricier as well. They know that's not going to be on there. And they probably already spoken to other agents too. So don't be surprised at either. So I already know we're probably going for option 2, where it's either half or partial. And then I love that it has an explanation there to kind of show them what that means, to paint the picture for them. Hey, for example, hey, we got the mortgage at 200. Let's just say the mortgage was 200,000. We're going to get a policy that covers any kind of death for 100,000. Then we're going to get the other half with an accidental. And then I paint the picture. So, hey, so we're gonna get the full mortgage like this. Usually this is, if something happens to you tomorrow, most likely it's gonna be an accident, especially in your case, if they're healthy, whatever you could say. You're healthy, pretty much it's gonna be an accident. You got a full mortgage payout, both policies are gonna pay out. But if something did medical or some kind of health conditions did develop over the years, we're assuming we're gonna have half the mortgage paid out by then, if not less. And you're still gonna have a full mortgage payout. This is just usually a lot easier on the pocket for some families. So I see more families do this if we want to keep price down. And then I go over critical period. If I'm going to show it, I'll show it. If not, I'm like, hey, disregard this. This is for my 65 and older. I'll move on. If not, I'll explain to it as well what that option is. So, hey, critical period, hey, if we were trying to, that's why I say, hey, if we were trying to get close to even the full mortgage, you have a $300,000 mortgage. We even get close to it, we're looking over $1,000 payment. I mean, we're looking at another mortgage payment. I don't think you want that, do you? No. Perfect. So I see more families in your situation. What we do is critical period, and I explain to it, hey, this is anywhere from about 6 months to about 24 months of mortgage payments. And what we're doing here is basically buying time for, our beneficiary, for Mary, whoever you say their name. So this is basically going to buy time for Mary. And by that time, you already know what you're going to do. So you explain. So this is give Mary, anywhere from 6 months to 12 months or 24 months of mortgage payments. So she could sell the house, move to family, wherever they could get the equity off the house. Is going to give enough time. And then I ask him too, this is critical. Does that make sense to you? Before I even go to the next step, does that make sense to you? If not, okay, let me explain it again, and I'll explain it a different way or kind of dumb it down a little bit more, whatever I have to do, so they acknowledge before I move on.
Right. And right, we'll stay on the topic of painting, right? And think of this, right? So we asked the really good questions, we've gotten the information, right? And now we're at that point, basically we drawed up a sketch of what's going to best fit them, right? Now we explain the different options, right? Because we gave them, think about this, we gave them 2 accidentals and three other options of however we're helping them, right? Critical period or the full half or whatever. At this point, we've started filling in this sketch. You almost know, right? This is at the point of a painting where you're like, oh, I know what this is. This is going to be Mickey Mouse, right? Or you're drawing a dolphin. I know what you're putting together, but it's still not perfectly clear, right? So think about that, right? So we've gotten to the point where I almost know exactly what this is, right? Like I know where you're headed with this painting. This is where a lot of us can get lost and pull the trigger and write the app and go on our way. Think about that. The client understands, right? They know what we're doing, but they don't have a clear picture, but they know where you're headed with it. And if you stop explaining there, right? Like, does that make sense to you? And they say, yes. Great, James. So give me your middle initial. Boom. And I write that puppy. It's the 12 months, the accidental, right? But we clearly didn't finish that portrait, right? Like it's not completely done. So this is where now they've selected their options. Now you draw in the eyes, right? The nose, you're very descriptive on it, and they completely understand the picture now, right? So think about that. Do not leave it at the point where they already know what you're about to do, right? Make sure it's a very clear picture for them, because that's what solidifies what you put in place, right? So now they've picked it, right? James, I love the way James presents it, right? Does that make sense to you? Yes, it does. Great. Let me know which one's perfect for y'all, right? For us, we do the water trick, right? I'm gonna go grab water. I've been talking a lot. I'm gonna let y'all think about this really quick. I pause them, right? I mute myself out and I literally get up. They see me get out of my screen and I'm usually just like David said, right? I love it, dude. I'm standing behind my picture right here in the hallway talking to my brother, and I can hear everything they're saying. No, we should do this one. And well, you know what? That's $250. And can we afford that? We're going to do 3. Because then I'm getting ammunition, right? When I come back and sit down, I'm like, hey, if I heard them say, right, like 250 it's going to be tight. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm gonna lower that. I'm like, hey, you know what? I don't want this to be tight for y'all, right? Let's just start with a little bit less. You can always increase it, right? But those are little things that I heard they didn't know I was hearing, right? I'm using this technology to my advantage, right? And then I come back. Now they've told me exactly what they want. Now I get to fill in everything, right? Because I'm gonna paint it exactly the way they wanted it, right? And now I solidify. Okay, so we're doing the 12 months, right? That's the one you want. Perfect for you, John. And we're gonna do the accidental that'll pay off the full mortgage. Mary, for you, we're only doing 6 months, right? And then we're gonna do the same thing accidental to cover the full thing. Great, right? And I start filling in this application, right? But guess what I'm doing while I'm filling out this application? Right? I'm solidifying the portrait, right? Like so, yeah, so we're gonna do this 12 months. And Mary, I just want to make sure again, right? This is the one we want for John. Yeah, do we understand how we would use this? Yeah, yeah. So this is gonna pay us. So it's 12 months. This is the only time I'll even give them a full figure, right? And then for simple numbers, I'm like, yeah, so this was the full year payoff, right? The mortgage was 1,000. So remember, it's gonna pay out 12. That's to pay off 12 months worth of mortgage payments. Yep, yeah, I understand that, Joe. That's exactly how it's gonna work. And then that's why I want the accidental, right? Because if it's an accident, because he's in construction, right? I get is it right, Joe? I get both? I'm like, yep, they both pay out, right? So you'd get 210,000, right? Whatever, or 12,000, whatever it would be. And she's like, yeah, okay, no, I get it. Right. And this, I'm getting this information while I'm getting them to solidify the painting, right? While I'm filling out the application. It builds so much rapport, right? Because guess what? When I get to the social or the bank information, do y'all know how much it's sold already? I think Danelle, you put it on there, right? Like they're repeating and telling me that what we did, right? Like I'm no longer a salesman. Like I'm just trying to solve their problem now. Right? They're like, yeah, no. So the bank information is blah, 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 blah. Right. And again, Joe, this is the 12-month one that you're filling. Like they're telling me what I'm filling out. Right. Like, so this is that bottom one, right? This is the 12 months, right? Yep. That's exactly the one I'm doing. The next one will be the accidental. Perfect. I'm like, that one's going to be really quick. Right. Like they even know, right? And they're pitching me, right, on why we're filling out this application. And there is no, why do you need my bank information? Right? Like they're already ready. Right. And James, what do you have on that part? Because again, dude, you probably have one of the best ones I've ever heard, right? Like as you're solidified how
Yeah.
they get to use this.
And I do a little step further. So I even go a little bit more, painting that picture even more in depth, getting the details. So if, especially on critical period, hey, this is $10,000, and that's 6 months worth of payments. So I let them know what they're going to get. So, hey, just so I want to make sure we understand, hey, this is going to give Mary 6 months worth of payments. So that's, hey, based off our income, hey, that's 1,500 or 1,000, whatever the case may be, right? So you got to paint that picture. So based off our payments that you mentioned, mortgage payments, hey, with a 1,500 a month, times 6 months, whatever that is, whatever you're going to give them. I don't think the math adds up, but I'm just going based off. But you let them know, hey, so she's gonna get a lump sum. So that, hey, that's 12,000 or whatever the case may be. So she's gonna get a lump sum of 12,000. Hey, great part is, hey, 6 months. If she sells the house in 4 months, she keeps the other money as well, so it doesn't go to the loss. It doesn't go to the lender, so she gets to keep it. So if any other expenses come up, it doesn't get thrown away. She's able to cover any other expenses that comes up. So she's going to get that full amount, so it doesn't get lost. So you got to paint the full picture, So, again, what it does, hey, it doesn't go to the lender. It's going to go to the beneficiary, whoever it is. You use names. So, hey, it's John. So it's going to give John, a year's worth of payments. If there are $1,000 payments. So, you mentioned the $1,000 payments. Hey, 12 months, that's $12,000. So that's going to give John $12,000. So he has enough time. Again, we just, we specified, hey, he's going to sell the house, probably move something closer to family, get a smaller house and move into his brother, whatever the case may be. And then, hey, if he sells the house, in 6 months, he still has the other 6 months. So he's going to have an extra $6,000. So maybe, hey, we could use that for final expense, any other bills that come up, for any other expenses. So it doesn't go lost. So we'll be able to keep that. Because a lot of times they ask you, hey, what if I sell it in 6 months, and I pay for 12 months worth of payments? You keep it all. And then that also helps when they get the policy in the mail. Like, hey, I got 12 months worth of payments, mortgage payments, and this is $12,000. What is this? It's not what we talked about. So you got to make sure you let them, hey, they're going to give you a lump sum. That's when I explain and what's going to happen. And I let them know, hey, does that make sense? Okay, perfect. Yeah. All right.
Oh, that's good. That's good, right? Like making sure you're telling them what they're gonna receive in the mail, because you know, I never even thought about that, James, right? Like I do it anyways, right? But making sure, right, because when we're presenting, right, we're only saying 12 months, right, 6 months, 6 months, letting them know what they're gonna see. I think that's a really good thing, right? Because they may open up that policy and they're like, whole life, $9,000. What? Right? So making sure, like, hey, you're when you get that policy, right? Remember, it's gonna on that policy, that's where you'll see Mutual of Omaha, right? It's gonna say death benefit for Mary. It's for $9,000. Remember, 9,000 divided by 6 is your mortgage payment. That's how they're gonna take care of that. Nice part is they give it to her all up front so she can take care of whatever she needs. So, dude, I'm glad you brought that up. That's solid,
Yeah,
right?
and I only go just because, hey, it's happened to me, and I gotta explain it. Hey, what is this? Like, I thought we asked for 12 months. Oh, sorry. Let me explain. This is this, and then then that
That's solid.
trust is gone, and then you know what? Just cancel this. Now I agree, or hey, they start going. Oh, okay, you gotta explain. You gotta build that trust again.
Sideways so fast.
Yeah. So just make sure you're upfront with them and you build that trust and let them know exactly at the end what they're gonna get, especially on critical period where they know on that
Wow.
part.
Well,
And then
man, dude, I think we've gone over anything. I'd love to answer any
I got
questions,
a
these
couple
situations y'all have. Yeah.
things. One, Joe, I used what you said. Just used it last week, and it really came into play because there was a little language barrier, and I had to, I said, explain to me in your own words what we're doing today. And her son was there, and both of them started explaining that when she passes, he would have a year and a half worth of mortgage payments to decide what to do with the home. And we also added an accidental because she was under 70. But I always spend 30 seconds on accidental. I'll say, listen, accidents it used to be top 3 causes of death in the country. COVID came around, it dropped to 4. And I go, but I think it's gone, COVID slowed down a little bit. I think it's creeped up to back to 3. I just looked it up, actually. It's actually still number 3. So I spend a little time and like, it happens. People pass away all the time from accidents, and 9 times out of 10, they know someone. So yeah, I asked them to tell me exactly what we're doing in their own words. And then I spent a little time on the accidental because it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
Having them tell you what they did, I can't tell you that was the biggest game changer for me to ever stop anyone calling me back and canceling the policy, because we're not getting off the phone unless they know exactly what we put in place. Right. Like it's then again, they sold themselves at this point. I was just the problem solver, right? You put it on the chat, right? So well, right? Like I'm no longer a salesman. I'm just like, okay, so you want this. Yep. And that's exactly what we put in place.
Yes, exactly. Where I'm at and where I
Anyone
want to
else
be
have any
type
other
thing.
questions or anything?
Whenever I'm going over the different options for them, for whatever reason, my tablet doesn't allow me to show the slideshows. So I actually show the client the illustration on the Americo like website.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a bad thing? Like, do you recommend that I keep doing that, or should I switch it up, or what do you think?
You're using a tablet?
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. Man.
I mean, I wouldn't use illustrations because illustration has a lot of information, and uh, it'll they'll probe whatever you're showing them, and then they're going to ask you, right, what is this? Well, what does that mean, right? If you haven't had that already, I used to do similar stuff, right? Because I wanted to be all professional, and I was like, hey, let me show this and that, and all it did was cause like, well, what does this mean? Well, what does that mean? What is chronic illness? What is I'm like, oh. And then good luck in explaining, right? Because now it's more information. So
there's
I
also
would stay away from showing that. I would
if you're
just
on a tablet, there's a PDF because you probably can't do it on PowerPoint. So if
oh,
you
good
download
point.
the
Yeah, so you can
PDF,
download the PDF. You should be able, and then you can
should
go through
work.
the slides. Good call. It's same place, right? So when you go to Quility HQ and you download the PowerPoint, right under the
Downloads automatically.
PowerPoint, it says a PDF file.
And then I just wanted to touch one last thing that we kind of missed, especially when asking all these questions, we're kind of pretty much drilling on them, make sure you're giving back information, just like, hey, where does your family live? You know, do they live in the same state and all that? Make sure, oh, hey, make sure you're giving, giving out as well, a little something about yourself as well, building that relationship, letting them know. I just want to touch key on that. Just be like, hey, you know what? I'm in the same situation. Hey, my brother lives over here, or, giving something. Hey, my sister's in California too. So, if something happened, I know she'd probably do this, relate to that, even policies you're showing too. We're like, hey, this is exactly what I have set up for my family as well. Anything you can relate builds that trust, even that higher point as well.
Yeah, we call it making a deposit before you make a withdrawal, right? Like make sure you give the information before you take, right? I can't emphasize that enough. So when we get off an appointment, right, they know everything I know about them, they literally know about me, right? Either cars, kids, where we live, like everything. I've been divorced. I mean, they know absolutely everything because the trust it's so solidified because we're best friends, right? Like there is nothing in between us that we don't know from our appointment. If I took information from them, they know that exact same thing from me, right? Why do they move there? When's a new home, right? How many family members, how many kids I have, what we do for fun, like everything. And that gives me the power to be able to connect with them. Let me see. So David, looks like you got a couple of questions, Lotta. If you want to just unmute yourself, because I think you had another one earlier too.
Yeah, I'm just wondering kind of what the policy is on asking for, I guess, authority to call the beneficiary and share with the beneficiary.
So that's the best way to find referrals. So absolutely get their number, get their information, right? And be like, hey, I'm going to reach out to them and let them know, right? They're the beneficiary, how this is going to work. And then that's also a great way to get a referral. So 100% lock that puppy in. And then you had another one maybe about the 30. So I don't understand the question. 30-day follow-up or something?
Oh, when you were talking about they had to do something, create the will, just another touch point, but I don't know if that's too much in this space.
So, I mean, it's never too much, dude. Like if you call them and I mean, that's a great way again to get more referrals, right? Like, hey, a 30-day follow-up. We usually do it when they get the policy, right? Which will be delivered in a few days, depending on the carrier. Sometimes it could be a week, right? But you can do what's called a policy review. Hey, I just want to make sure you got it, right? Everything looks good on it, all the social, perfect. We did put John, your son, as a beneficiary. Hey, you want me to, something I do is I reach out to them, letting them know we put this in place, let them know they have my information, right? Because they'd be calling me, right? Or Mutual of Omaha. That's a great way to get a referral. And then, so absolutely. I wouldn't say you have to wait 30 days nowadays because of technology. It's way faster. Back in the day, I think it would have been closer to 30 days, but now it's usually within that same week.
So no more horse and buggy?
No more horse and buggy. Now it's the internets.
Hey, Joe, you were talking
Thank
about
you.
not explaining and keeping it simple. I really like the language you used around like you're young and healthy. We're going to go for a full payoff, and this is why. But I didn't get it. I didn't get it written down in time.
So usually if you're doing young and healthy, right, there is no why, right? It's just like, hey, we're going to be able to pay off the full mortgage, right? So this is super easy, right? And if you're going to have to pitch a different thing, right, like critical illness or something like that, like, hey, usually this is how we help families in your situation. Whatever you're presenting them, stay away from the word I, though. That's what I would advise it, right? Like, don't say, hey, this is what I put together for you. This is how I think I should help you, right? This is how we help other families in your situation. Because then that puts them in the herd mentality. And hey, everyone today that I've helped have actually been in your situation, right? This is how we help families, right, in your home, in y'all's situation. I always use that because they all want to do what everyone else is doing, right? Everyone that buys a home that has kids, this is how they do it. Everyone that buys a home that's in their 65s, right? And they just need a little bit of equity protection. This is how they do it.
And then you throw in that's everybody's doing it.
Everyone's doing it.
Everybody's sandbagging.
Apparently, you heard that, Tickle? Well, sweet. We're at 10:03. Unless anyone has anything